Welcome back to the St. Louis Parish Podcast. I'm Andrew Lane, the Director of Communications here at St. Louis, and today I'm joined by Chris Bouquet and Jim McCracken. Chris and Jim are volunteers for our Homebound ministry, specifically bringing Holy Communion to the Homebound. They're here to talk about their experiences with this ministry and some positives they've seen from being involved. Chris and Jim, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I gave you a brief intro, but if you guys could do it a little bit more in depth, maybe share with us your history with ministry and then what you're doing now.
Sure. Well, I'm Chris, and I was asked in 2008 by Father Francis de Rosa to become an extraordinary minister of Holy Communion. Okay. And so I've been an extraordinary minister since then, and just been an amazing experience.
Very nice. Since 2008.
2008, yes.
So somewhat approaching 20 years.
Getting there, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very nice.
In my case, I had been involved behind the altar. I'd been a kind of a secondary sacristan type of thing. But in 2004, I moved my father from Florida. My mother had died, and he was starting to have memory issues. So I moved him up here to an assisted living on the Route 1 corridor. And I came to realize during Lent of that year that there was no regularity of their receiving communion. Mm-hmm. So I went to whoever the pastor was at that time and asked if I could do communion there. And really that's where I started. Was I went through the training. Father De Laurenti was the person who did it at the diocesan level. And I got certified, and I started going and doing a little communion service for the Catholics at this retirement facility. And that was where it started, and I went to a couple other places. And then I kind of just evolved back into serving at Mass. And so that was in 2004, so a little over 20 years now I've been. Wow. And which is interesting because when you started, it was supposed to be 10 years to do it, and then you're supposed to get off and let somebody else do it. But I guess there weren't as many somebody else's who would have resulted in me getting kicked out after my period, and so I've just been here for all these years.
Yeah, no one to replace you, so why leave?
Yes,
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So Chris, you were personally asked by the pastor.
Yes.
And then
actually, Father De Rosa was not pastor at the time. He was parochial vicar.
Gotcha.
But yes, he asked me. I don't think I would have thought of doing it had I not been asked. And I saw you all had a podcast about saying no to requests recently.
I saw that one also.
But when a priest of God asks you to do something, it's very hard to say no because you feel like the request is coming from God himself. You know, granted, that's his representative.
Right.
But, so it has been a great adventure since then.
Holy pressure.
Yes.
Yeah. And Jim, sounds like you had very direct personal ties,
yes,
to the need. You saw it firsthand.
As I said, I just felt that it was not good that these people who my father went to church religiously all of his life, and as his memory was failing, it just seemed right that there should be somebody that brings the Eucharist to these people. And so I started just going to there, and I kind of branched out to a couple other places. But yeah, that's where my first start with serving the community as an extraordinary minister was going to the nursing homes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I did come in, and ultimately I'm doing it in church at masses and with the school masses, and actually for a period I was coordinating it with the assignments and what have you when we would do that kind of stuff. Yeah. Because
I know St. Louis now serves 3 assisted living facilities and about 40 individual homes that we visit. Yeah. So it's a very good number of people that we're ministering to. Yeah. Would you guys know off the top of your head how many ministers we have taking communion to the Homebound?
I can't answer that question for you right now. I know I occasionally run into people like when one of our ministers, Maurice Chow, who goes over to Paul Springs, was getting ready for some surgery that went in. I met the gentleman that Father Thompson had recruited to to go over and serve at Paul Springs as the Eucharistic minister that went there and they do a communion service type of thing on Sundays over there. So at this point, I don't know that we have any organized collection among us of who's serving in that ministry.
I don't know either. I have a rough sense it's, less than 10.
Sure.
But I don't know, really, honestly. But I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like we need more.
Yeah.
I suspect that more would be good.
Yes.
I agree. It is, particularly with the Homebound, the more people that you have to go see, the more it's just a perfunctory activity. Whereas I go to a couple of people and it's I bring the Eucharist, but it is bringing the community to them. I'm bringing from the celebration of the liturgy, I'm bringing the Lord to them, so that even though they weren't able to be with the congregation, the Eucharist that was consecrated at that celebration is brought to them, and that extends that liturgical connection to them. And then there's some socializing and talking and finding out how their week was, how the time has been since the last time that I've been to them, and that kind of stuff. So that's my approach to the home visit, rather than just here you go, here's our Lord. I got to go visit somebody else.
A very similar experience, like you were saying, your father had been a lifelong Catholic. A lot of these people are lifelong Catholics.
Correct.
They're really longing for Jesus, but you bring them Jesus, but you're also bringing them the bulletin, and they all are all over the bulletin.
Yeah.
They love to feel part of the community, and they want to know what's happening at church. Sometimes you recap the homily, and they're all very grateful. Like it's such a great joy, when you see their gratitude, for.
We had St. Vincent de Paul Society on here recently, and they talked about people come to them for financial aid, financial help, but they go and they visit them in their homes, and they say that makes another very deep positive impact. Just they come for maybe financial assistance, but then they receive this fellowship, and they can see the impact that just knowing someone cares and is listening is a big deal. So I didn't fully realize the Eucharist is such a big deal, but I guess the community aspect, like you're saying, can't be understated.
Yeah.
Well, and then the bulletin always names a few homebounds every week, so they look for their name, and they know they're being prayed for. And it's really, really great feeling for them.
Chris, could you walk me through maybe a regular process from Mass to visiting? What does a visit look like?
Sure. So, you get to know these people, and they're really like family, or you're part of their family after a number of years. So you're greeting them. We try to keep conversation at a minimum until they receive the Lord.
Yeah.
Although sometimes they'll interject, and you don't want to be too
brusque
about it. So you let the conversation go a little bit, but then you get to the prayers, and then after the prayers, you talk to them, like Jim was saying. Just find out how they're doing.
Yeah.
They a lot of times want to know about your family. They share things with you. I had one beautiful lady. She had a big fig tree in her yard, so every year when the figs were ripe, she insisted I take them home to my wife, and who loves figs. So every year we get the figs, and then she was an old Italian lady. She also had daffodils in her lawn, just covering her lawn every spring. And she go outside and pick some for your wife. And I come back with like 10 or 12. She goes, "What are you doing? Go get more daffodils." Like she would. So she was sort of like an Italian mother to me.
That's sweet.
But there's so many stories like that.
Yeah. Do you find you have your regulars?
I guess I've reached the point where those that I go to, I consider are my regulars. I mean, again, not knowing how many people and not having it coordinated by the extraordinary ministers themselves. As I said, in a way, that was part of the process, is that we kind of assigned people, and I had a schedule of who was going to what places and what masses and that kind of stuff. And now it is probably more appropriately focused from the priests knowing who needs to be visited and that kind of stuff. And we're an extension, as I used to write, that's really what extraordinary ministers are. We're there to supplement and to assist in those aspects that the priest is not able to. And they can't take the Eucharist to everybody on Sunday or after a holy day. And so that's what we're doing, is assisting in the extension of the liturgy to those who aren't able to be there.
Yeah.
And I would say, like on First Fridays, the tradition is that the fathers would visit, and that's a big deal for the Homebounds.
Oh, it is, yeah.
They'll talk about that for weeks.
Yeah, I one of my people just called me today and said, "Oh, Father Luke came today."
Yeah.
So
Father Luke has a fan club.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then we fill in and do the other weekends. God willing, we could have every weekend covered by an EM. Where the priest is not visiting, so that all of our homebounds have communion every weekend.
Yeah.
And we used to have that level of coverage.
I agree.
Before COVID.
Yeah.
And I think after COVID, it was very hard to put it back together. I don't exactly know where we stand right now, but I suspect, we're not covering everybody every weekend. And I think that's a good goal for us. Looking for service week coming up for people to step up and help with that.
I agree. I think after COVID, I think things went more unglued in that regard. And yeah, it is a privilege and a gift, I think, to participate in this ministry. And worthiness is in God's eyes, not in our eyes. And so, as a byproduct of this podcast, if there are people who think about it, we could really use more. There's never too many lay people who have chosen to take the time in their Sunday or their holy day to, in addition to participate themselves in the liturgy, to extend that gift of the Eucharist to somebody who's not in a position to be able to come and participate in person at the Eucharist.
And also, I would say, like, even at the assisted living facilities, if you only have one person going, you have people in their rooms who can't come to the service. So if you had two people going or three people going, you could sort of divide
spread
and
it out.
conquer.
Agreed. That's
and it's it's so important to these people. And I've just, like, I had one man at Paul Springs, and I had been going to see him for like 10 years, and there was a minister taking care of Paul Springs, but occasionally I'd just go over with communion and see him, and I would come into his room. We'd talk. He was a Navy guy, so he would give me his war stories, literally, from Vietnam era, and he was a commander of a destroyer. And here's this little old man in bed, 95 years old, like apparently shriveled up, but then you're listening to him talk about his war experience, and you realize this is a substantial person who commanded a lot of people and assets, and a very faithful disciple of Christ. His language is a little salty sometimes, but I would leave his room and I would hear him say, "Thank you, Jesus."
wow.
I'd hear him as I'm going down the hall, because he's so grateful.
Yeah.
And he was so dependent on that.
On that ministry.
Yeah.
Wow.
On receiving Jesus. Yeah. And you need I think you need the ministry to supplement what the priests are doing, like Jim says.
Yeah.
Jim, you got any inspiring stories, maybe positive moments you wanted to share?
Well, I guess just the as Chris said, the joy of the people who, when you go to them, the happiness of having the Eucharist brought to them. And I've even gotten to the point with one of the ladies who's getting a little older, and that I try to make an effort to get the low gluten host, which is a little less substantial than our host, and that because it's, for some older people, the more substantial hosts do become an issue sometime to properly swallow and that kind of stuff. So, I make an effort in her case to, I'll sometimes when I'm going to her, I'll come earlier and get the low gluten host out of the tabernacle so that I have something to take to her that makes it a little bit easier for her to receive communion and consume it properly or comfortably. Yeah.
Sounds like you guys put in a lot of care for the people that it sounds like you develop relationships with several, if not many of these people.
I mean, I think it's another EM told me once that it was transformational for him to become an EMHC. And I would say it has been for me as well, because, I'm a selfish person by nature. And it takes me outside of myself, where I'm focused on another person. And that's, and then the other thing is you are, because the Homebounds are very grateful. Like I said, they'll thank you profusely. I said, I get to hang out with Jesus, while I'm driving to your house and back to, to my next stop. Yeah. So I'm getting so much out of it.
That was one of the things that one of the priests here over time, I mean, when we're about our business, we're a tabernacle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the Lord on us, and so we are a tabernacle taking the Lord to somebody who wasn't able to be there, and so that's an important position that gives you maybe pause for those who, again, out here are listening, think, I'm not worthy about that, but it's an honor. It's,
it is. And like you said, Jim, it's not that any of us are worthy of that. And I have friends who've said, that is just too much. I can't even think of doing that, because that's the Lord of the universe that you're carrying around. And when you start thinking that way, you think it is incredible and amazing. But then somebody has to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't leave those people alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we cannot abandon the Homebound because they're part of our family.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
For those maybe thinking about joining, what is the minimum requirement if they just want to get their feet wet a little bit?
I don't know that the diocese has a requirement. There's no thing where you have to. I mean, you have to be baptized, and obviously you're in good standing with your parish. And I mean, there are those limited types of things. But no, there's no skill level. There's no academic level. There's no persona level. It is just realizing that it's an opportunity to be a corporal work of mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, Jim, thank you both very much for your time.
Well,
your
thank you for
dedication,
inviting us.
Your love of Christ
thank
and the
you.
Homebound. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
For those interested in joining the Homebound ministry, please check the links in the description and the contact info in the show notes or the email. Thank you.